story kicks off with all the royal drama one could ask for: a grand cathedral, a solemn priest, and a wedding that has half the guests clutching their pearls. The priest calmly announces that the marriage certificate is signed and tells the couple to exchange rings, as if this is just another Tuesday. Unfortunately for the gossip-loving crowd, the bride is none other than Mikias, the kingdom's most misunderstood job title holder, the gravekeeper saintess. Naturally, the guests start whispering like they're auditioning for a scandal choir, horrified that someone associated with graves is about to become queen. Apparently, holy spaces are fine with politics, but draw the line at cemetery vibes. Mikias feels every sharp whisper, but Prince Riddle leans in with a surprisingly warm smile, reminding her that he chose her. He even calls her his beautiful bride, which would be heart-melting if this weren't a mutually beneficial fake marriage. Mikias, ever practical, gently reminds him that this is a strategic arrangement, not a love story. Still, the priest seals the deal, and just like that, they're officially husband and wife, at least on paper. Cut to reality. Mikias wakes up in her modest mountain cabin far from royal luxury. She feeds the birds, greets her mother's portrait, and heads off to work like the underpaid heroine she is. Along the way, she explains the kingdom's saint hierarchy. There's the Saintess of Foresight's Future Hotline, the Saintess of Healing, Walking Hospital, the Saintess of Fertility, Agricultural Department, and then her. The Gravekeeper Saintess, the one called in only when a saintess dies. In other words, she's the kingdom's spiritual break glass in case of emergency. At the cathedral, the maids greet her with icy stares. The other saintesses arrive in full holy glamour. Selena, the Saintess of Healing, radiates arrogance. Connie, the Saintess of Foresight, backs her up with matching attitude, and Christina, the Saintess of Fertility, quietly observes like the only emotionally stable person in the room. Selena wastes no time belittling Mikias, who avoids confrontation with professional-level politeness. Then Prince Riddle appears, carrying his legendary cold prince reputation. Selena instantly switches from frosty to flirty, offering healing services with suspicious enthusiasm. Mikias accidentally makes eye contact with the prince, clearly a criminal offense, and earns a death glare from Selena. The monthly ritual begins, all solemn prayers and sacred responsibilities. While the others focus on divine blessings, Mikias focuses on something equally sacred: payday. Prince Riddle notices her sudden brightness and wonders what drama he's missed. As he reflects on choosing a future queen, he mentally disqualifies Christina, his sister. Awkward. Connie's unsuitable, and sees through Selena's power-hungry smile. That leaves one overlooked saintess standing quietly in the corner. After the ceremony, Riddle departs, and Mikias prepares for her well-earned coins. But instead of a dignified transaction, Selena dumps the money on the floor as punishment for daring to look at the prince. Connie joins in, splashing water on Mikias and tossing more coins at her like she's feeding pigeons. And so, the kingdom's most essential emergency saintess ends her day soaked, humiliated, and on her hands and knees, literally picking up her paycheck. Royal life, truly glamorous. Connie skips off laughing like she just won Mean Girl of the Month, telling Mikias to upgrade her rags. Left soaked and humiliated, Mikias mutters curses under her breath, but still proudly notes that she collected every single coin. Petty? Maybe. Profitable? Absolutely. Just as she's finishing her floor-level treasure hunt, Christina comes running like the only decent human in a palace full of glittering egos. She apologizes for not stepping in, but Mikias brushes it off, knowing Christina's kindness is the real miracle in this holy circus. Seeing Mikias shivering, Christina drapes a cape over her shoulders and gently towels her hair, ignoring protests about dirty hands and precious rings. Noble status, yes. Noble heart, even more so. Christina sadly admits there's little she can do against the others, but promises to help however she can. For Mikias, that's more than enough. In a palace where everyone treats her like a walking bad omen, Christina is warmth itself. Mikias returns home that evening to her tiny mountain cabin announcing "I'm home" to an audience of absolutely no one. She pulls out her secret jar of savings, the great escape fund she and her late mother built coin by coin. One day, she swears she'll stop being the timid Gravekeeper Saintess and run far away. Her mother's words echo in her mind. Gravekeeper saints don't live long, and the kingdom binds them to the land. Save your allowance, run when you can. Clutching the jar, Mikias wonders if that time has finally come. Then, guard pounds on her door with all the subtlety of a tax collector. There's a job, and the job comes with devastating news: Lady Christina is dead. The world seems to tilt. Mikias is hauled into a carriage, barely processing the words. As the Gravekeeper Saintess, her duty is grim and specific. When a saintess, she purifies the sacred stone so its power can pass on. If a saintess is murdered, the stone's power is lost forever. Which means this isn't just tragic, it's dangerous. At the palace, Mikias rushes to Christina's side, calling her name in disbelief. Prince Riddle stands there, grief carved into his usually stone, cold expression. He may have a reputation for frostbite-level indifference, but for his family, the mask cracks. Before Mikias can even grieve properly, she's ordered to begin her work. Of course, she's the Gravekeeper Saintess. Emotions optional, labor mandatory. She prepares to purify the sacred stone, expecting it to shine brilliantly. After all, no one was kinder than Christina. Instead, dark energy coils around it. The stone is pitch black, tainted, corrupted beyond belief. Riddle demands answers, his voice tight with suspicion and grief. A guard rushes in with helpful information. Mikias was seen alone with Christina the night before. The timing could not be worse. Riddle confronts her directly, revealing he knows about the meeting. Suddenly, kindness looks like motive. Dragged into a private room, Mikias faces the prince's icy stare. Did she taint the stone? Did she kill his sister? She protests desperately. She only spoke with Christina, who had comforted her after the bullying. Christina had encouraged her to stay strong, promised protection, offered warmth in a palace full of cold. Prince Riddle briefly lets his guard down, his expression softening as he remembers his sister. For one fleeting second, the kingdom's resident ice sculpture actually smiles. Mikias, stunned, realizes that the cold-hearted prince apparently only defrosts for family. Good to know. Pity she's not related. Grief tightens in her chest. She's used to being the palace's least favorite saintess, the human equivalent of a bad omen, but Christina had always treated her kindly. That kindness now fuels her determination to uncover the truth. Unfortunately, Riddle's warmth evaporates as quickly as it appeared. He informs her she'll be confined until her name is officially cleared. Close to his sister or not, suspicion still hangs over her head like a very unfriendly halo. Left alone, Mikias fumes. By morning, there's still no news. She lies sprawled across an absurdly luxurious palace bed, torn between anxiety and the undeniable fact that it's the fluffiest mattress she's ever experienced. Yes, she's a murder suspect, but at least the bedding is 5-star. Reality soon crashes back in. She doubts the palace plans to keep her in comfort forever. Once the ritual issue is settled, she fully expects a dungeon upgrade. Cold stone floors included. Panic rises as she remembers her mother's dying wish: escape the country, live long, and don't let the gravekeeper curse consume her. Her mother's health had withered under the burden of that very role. And now Christina is dead too. Serve the kingdom, get blamed, die early. What a career path. In a burst of rebellion, Mikias shreds her pillow in frustration. Feathers exploding dramatically around her. She declares she's done with the country and marches to the door, only to find it locked. Undeterred, she attempts the classic shoulder charge escape plan. The moment she hurls herself forward, the door swings open. She slams directly into a tall, blonde nobleman. Mortified, she looks up into the face of a ridiculously handsome stranger who seems more amused than injured. He casually identifies her as the suspected culprit, and points out that trying to break out was actually the correct decision. According to him, staying in the palace might make her the next saintess to die. That gets her attention. He explains the anomaly: when a saintess is murdered, her sacred stone should lose its power entirely. Christina's stone didn't. It remained powerful, just horribly tainted. Which means something far stranger is happening within the palace walls. In other words, this isn't just tragedy, it's conspiracy. He even throws subtle shade at Prince Riddle, calling him cruel for doing nothing to protect the gravekeeper saintess. Then, because subtlety clearly isn't his style, he brushes a strand of hair from Mikias's face and leans in far too close. If he were Prince, he claims, he would never have locked her up like this. Mikias's brain short-circuits under the combined pressure of suspicion, danger, and attractive proximity. When she finally asks his business, he reveals that her confinement interrupted the purification ritual. He has come, apparently, to rescue his captive princess. Dramatic much. He assures her he's already handled the palace officials and won't let the prince object. The confidence suggests he holds authority of his own, possibly more than he's admitting. He urges her to finish purifying the corrupted sacred stone of fertility, promising that once the ritual is complete, she'll be free to leave. Though confused and wary, Mikias agrees. The stone remains dark and ominous, and regardless of politics, Christina deserves peace. Whatever twisted truth lies behind the tainted gem, Mikias resolves to cleanse it, for her friend, for the next saintess, and perhaps for her own survival in a palace where holy power and hidden danger now seem tightly intertwined. Mikias knows better than anyone that purifying a sacred stone isn't some gentle sparkle and pray routine. It's more like, donate half your lifespan for the kingdom, day. The ritual drains her strength every single time. But she clenches her fists and decides this will be her final act as a saintess. Clean the stone, regain her strength, grab her savings, and run. Retirement plan: immediate and permanent exile. The charming blonde noble, mysterious, smug, and suspiciously handsome, tells her to head to the mausoleum first while he handles some business. Before she leaves, he leans in and whispers that he'll join her soon, successfully short-circuiting her brain. Flustered beyond repair, she flees before he can say anything else devastatingly attractive. At the mausoleum, Selena is already waiting with her signature expression, smug superiority no 5. She scolds Mikias for being late and orders her to hurry up, as if they're behind schedule for tea instead of a sacred purification. Mikias bites back a retort about it being Prince Riddle's fault and throws herself into the ritual. Her body glows as she channels her power into Christina's tainted stone. The dark impurity fights back viciously, and Mikias gasps for air as if she's wrestling a demon made of bad decisions. Just then, Prince Riddle and the priest storm in, shocked to see the ritual already underway. Riddle demands to know who released her, until he notices how pale she looks. His anger falters into concern. Moments later, her legs give out. Riddle lunges forward and catches her before she hits the floor. Half-conscious, she weakly jokes that she's been caught sneaking out. Even now, humor survives. She explains that this exhaustion is normal for her kind. Gravekeeper powers reportedly shave years off their lives. Riddle's expression darkens at the reminder. Still, she forces herself upright long enough to present the now purified, glowing green stone. Christina's sacred stone shines once more. Mission accomplished. With a faint smile, Mikias murmurs that Christina can finally rest in peace, and then promptly passes out in the prince's arms. Chaos erupts, maids gasp, guards panic, but Selena watches silently, her eyes cold and unreadable. Enter the blonde noble in full dramatic timing. He casually observes that the ritual appears successful. Riddle immediately recognizes him as Ernest Windermere, older brother of the Saintess of Foresight, and demands to know what he's plotting. Ernest claims he simply pitied Mikias's treatment. Then, without hesitation, he scoops the unconscious Saintess into his arms and announces he's taking her home. Riddle refuses, insisting she remain in the palace during the investigation. Ernest counters smoothly that tragedy happened in the palace, so perhaps it's the least safe place of all. Connie, ever loyal to family, backs her brother. The tension thickens, until Riddle spots something chilling. On Ernest's finger gleams Christina's ring. Alarm bells ring louder than cathedral chimes. Why does Ernest have it? Suspicion spikes instantly. As Ernest turns to leave with Mikias, Riddle demands to know his true intentions. Ernest pauses, smiles faintly, and delivers his answer like it's the most obvious thing in the world: he plans to marry her. Later, Mikias wakes in a bright, luxurious bedroom, far nicer than any dungeon she'd imagined. Ernest lounges beside her bed, looking far too pleased. Disoriented, she learns she's been unconscious for an entire day. He stayed by her side, apparently worried. As her memories piece themselves together, the ritual, the collapse, the deal to escape, Ernest casually reminds her of one tiny detail she missed while unconscious. He publicly declared he would marry her. Mikias's exhausted brain finally catches up, and her scream could probably purify another sacred stone on its own. She demands to know when this life-altering decision was made, and more importantly, why she, professional scapegoat and part-time grave purifier, was selected as the bride. Ernest, naturally, ignores the interrogation and leans in far too close for her emotional stability. He runs his fingers through her hair like they're already in a romance novel, leaving her blushing, sputtering, and seconds away from spontaneous combustion. While she's still rebooting from handsome noble proximity overload, a far more urgent horror hits her. Her money, her carefully hidden jar of gold coins, years of savings, escape fund extraordinaire, is sitting back in her cabin. Out, in the open, unprotected. Suddenly, marriage panic takes a backseat to financial panic. She announces she must leave immediately. Ernest tries to remind her that Christina's funeral is starting, but Mikias, priorities straight, insists she already said her goodbyes. Freedom first, grieving later. Ernest agrees to escort her home, and they step into a sea of mourners gathered for Christina's funeral. Mikias feels a bittersweet warmth seeing how many people loved her friend, until Prince Riddle approaches with his usual stern aura. To her shock, Riddle apologizes, actually bows his head. The kingdom's iciest prince sincerely apologizes for doubting her. Mikias nearly short-circuits again, hurriedly telling him it's fine and begging him to raise his head. She even offers him a gentle smile, understanding his grief. Riddle studies her with a complicated look that suggests feelings are trying to form. Dangerous. Ernest promptly inserts himself into the moment, placing a possessive hand on her shoulder and smoothly reminding Riddle that he'll be escorting her home. He even throws in a pointed comment about Riddle's sick father, just to twist the knife politely. As they walk away, Riddle glares at Ernest's back, fully aware that the Windermere heir is not acting out of pure kindness. The political reality looms large in Exon. One saintess becomes queen. The others marry powerful nobles who exploit their divine abilities for wealth. Over time, saint families have grown stronger than the crown itself. Riddle realizes Ernest is likely trying to claim the marginalized Gravekeeper saintess to expand Windermere influence, and possibly threaten the throne. Unless Mikias chooses differently. Meanwhile, Mikias' speed walking toward her cabin like a woman racing against destiny. Ernest questions her urgency, especially on funeral day. Before she can dodge the question, their path is blocked. Selena stands there, smiling like a villain at intermission. In her hands, the jar. Mikias' soul practically leaves her body. Selena mocks her pathetic little escape fund and casually informs her that attempting to flee the country is a serious crime for a saintess. Punishable. Painfully, Mikias lunges for the jar, shouting that she saved that money with her mother. Selena's expression turns venomous, accusing her of shamelessly approaching Prince Riddle. Ernest steps in with fake diplomacy, pointing out she hasn't actually escaped yet. Selena proposes a delightful bargain. She'll keep the money but allow Mikias to leave, if Mikias agrees to marry Ernest and promises never to approach Riddle again. Mikias refuses at first, but Ernest pressures her, warning that refusing could mean palace punishment. He swears he'll cherish her forever, though his smile feels slightly too calculated. Trapped between losing her freedom or losing everything else, Mikias stands frozen. Her savings are gone, a forced marriage looms, and the dream of running away is slipping through her fingers faster than coins from a broken jar. Mikias was busy reliving the greatest hits of her tragic life: mother gone, villagers throwing stones, and the glamorous title of Gravekeeper Saintess, used mostly as an insult, when reality rudely interrupted her. A voice called her name, and suddenly there stood Prince Riddle, complete with guards and princely urgency. He dramatically extended his hand like this was the final scene of a romance drama. Ernest, not to be outdone, tried tugging her the other way, essentially turning Mikias into the emotional rope in a royal tug of war. Faced with a lifetime of servitude versus a suspiciously well-timed rescue, she chose the prince, apologizing to Ernest while mentally accepting that her life would continue being complicated either way. The palace did not greet her with open arms. Whispers followed her like background music. Ominous this, curse that. At Lady Christina's funeral, decorum was present, but sincerity had clearly RSVP'd no. Riddle was called to prepare remarks, yet he insisted on speaking privately with Mikias first. When she asked why he had helped her, he awkwardly admitted he'd seen she was in trouble, and that he kinda owed her one. Not exactly poetry, but refreshingly honest for a royal. In a lavish room filled with tea and cookies, because nothing says political maneuvering like baked goods, Riddle made his proposition. Mikias, understandably defensive after being treated like a magical utility tool her entire life, assumed he wanted to use her too. He quickly clarified that he didn't intend to take anything from her. In fact, he'd overheard her conversation with Ernest and knew she wanted out of the Saintess Palace. His solution? A temporary engagement. He promised eventual freedom, on the small condition that she pretend to be his fiancée for now. Mikias, who had apparently become the kingdom's most eligible strategic asset, stared at him in disbelief. Another proposal. Really? Riddle explained it wasn't about love but about preventing the Windermeres from stealing her freedom. Practical, slightly alarming, yet oddly noble. He warned her that Ernest's polite smile hid sharp edges. Mikias agreed. She already disliked Ernest anyway, and demanded to know the benefits package of marrying a prince. Before he could elaborate, duty called. At the funeral, nobles buzzed around Selena and Ernest like bees around honey, bargaining for favors and future visits, while Riddle stood alone at the front. Isolated, dignified, and noticeably ignored. From behind a curtain, Mikias observed the scene and realized something quietly heartbreaking. Despite his title, Riddle had no real allies. Surrounded by opportunists, he was perhaps lonelier than she was. And yet, he was willing to risk his reputation and propose a fake engagement to protect her. Someone he had no obligation to save. For the first time, Mikias saw not just a prince making a political move, but a solitary young man trying, in his own awkward way, to do something right in a room full of wrong reasons. Prince Riddle addressed the mourning crowd with calm dignity, praising his late sister Christina's devotion as the saintess of fertility and reminding everyone that her loss was not just personal, but national. In a reassuring twist, he announced that the stone of fertility was still working just fine. Thank you very much, and that little sister Lunamari would be stepping into the divine family business. Then, with impeccable timing, he dropped Mikias's name as the one to complete the ritual, effectively tossing her into the spotlight without a rehearsal. Mikias, heart pounding, realized this was more than ceremony. It was the doorway Riddle had promised her. Compared to Ernest and Selena's manipulative smiles, the prince's straightforward gamble suddenly looked refreshingly honest. Watching the two schemers practically salivate in the crowd, Mikias made her decision. She would stand beside Riddle and claim her freedom on her own terms. But Riddle wasn't done. Pulling her close, he made a second, far louder announcement he and Mikias were getting engaged, and she would be the future queen. The nobles gasped. The whispers exploded. Somewhere in the crowd, Selena's face drained of color before flushing with venomous fury. While the couple stood united at the altar, Selena silently spiraled from disbelief to jealousy to full-blown murderous intent, apparently skipping all reasonable emotional steps in between. Selena having a totally normal evening, which for her involves brooding in a dark room and aggressively shredding rose petals like they personally offended her. When a maid dares to interrupt her villain origin story, moment to announce the arrival of Ernest Windermere, Selena decides to provide some unsolicited hair care advice. She mocks the maid's light brown hair, comparing it to dried leaves, before accidentally setting the poor girl on fire with a candle. In a masterclass of gaslighting, Selena then stares at the screaming, charred maid and calmly asks why she's making such a fuss since there clearly isn't a fire. Once she's done traumatizing the staff, Selena meets with Ernest Windermere, who is leaning against a window looking like he's posing for a budget romance novel cover. Ernest doesn't waste time with small talk. He proposes a villain's RS alliance. He wants the Gravekeeper Saintess, Mikias for his own power, hungry reasons, and he knows Selena wants Prince Riddle. Selena, realizing their interests in ruining lives perfectly align, gives a smile that would make a shark nervous and agrees to join forces. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, Mikias is having a minor existential crisis over the sheer luxury of her new room. She is summoned to Prince Riddle's quarters, where she finds him attending to his bedridden father, the king. Riddle introduces Mikias as his fiancée, and the king is surprisingly supportive. He reveals that he, too, wants to reform the corrupt saintess system that exploits girls like Mikias. The king, looking like he's on his last legs, asks Mikias to take care of his son, and she nervously promises to serve him to the best of her ability, likely wondering if, fiancé duties include more than just not tripping over her own feet. As they leave the king's room, Riddle mentions his younger sister, Lunamari, who is currently a mess after the death of their older sister, Christina. He decides to focus on Mikias for the time being, which in royal terms means a mandatory makeover. He brings in a seamstress who has the energy of a caffeinated hurricane. This fashionista treats Mikias like a dress-up doll, puting her through a dizzying montage of ruffles, silk, and increasingly heavy gowns. When the exhausted Mikias asks Riddle which dress he prefers, he pulls the ultimate rich guy move and simply orders the seamstress to buy them all because making decisions is for people without a royal treasury. Later, Mikias finally gets into a normal dress and thanks Riddle with genuine emotion. She admits she spent her whole life in rags or her mother's hand-me-downs. This confession actually cracks Riddle's icy exterior. He softens and mentions that his mother and sister also loved embroidery, creating a rare moment of actual human connection. However, the mood shifts as Mikias reflects on the political minefield Riddle is walking through. He's surrounded by enemies like Selena and Connie, who are basically professional gold diggers with holy titles. Mikias feels a pang of fake fiancé guilt, knowing she plans to fulfill her promise and then vanish into the night. Riddle, sensing her unease, promises that if his mission becomes too dangerous, he'll let her run away to save her own life. Mikias is touched but also slightly alarmed that guaranteeing her life is even a necessary part of the conversation. Riddle reminding her that the bride selection ceremony is fast approaching and he's going to need her to play her part perfectly if they're both going to survive the upcoming social massacre. Mikias curiously asks Riddle what exactly a bride selection ceremony entails, wondering if it is essentially a wedding. Riddle confirms it is a grand event where he will invite distinguished guests to witness the choice of the future queen. Mikias immediately begins to panic, her imagination running wild as she screams internally, wondering if the ceremony involves a public kiss. Riddle notices her distress and leans in, teasingly asking if it would be her first kiss. Mikias frantically denies it, blushing furiously and claiming she has plenty of experience, while a mental image reveals her only kisses were affectionate pecks from her mother. Riddle sees right through her obvious lie and laughs heartily. He reassures her that he won't actually kiss her, leaving Mikias embarrassed but secretly struck by how handsome he looks when he truly smiles. Later that night, Mikias lies on her massive bed, staring up at the high ceilings. She marvels at how different this luxury is from her old hut and reflects on the fact that, even if the marriage is a sham, she is technically the future queen. She thinks of her late mother and then turns her thoughts toward the Saintess Palace. She laments how the institution has fallen from grace, becoming a place where saintesses like Selena and Connie indulge in greed and vanity instead of serving the people. The narrative shifts to the history of the kingdom of Action. Long ago, God sent his son Glaxion to govern the earth. Glaxion chose a human maiden named Teresa as his queen and bestowed upon her a jewel containing divine power. Because the power was too immense for a single human to bear, Teresa split the stone into 4 parts: healing, foresight, fertility, and the gravekeeper's stone. She kept the healing stone and entrusted the others to 3 virtuous maidens. Since then, it became custom for the princes of Glaxion's bloodline to choose their wives from among the saintesses. Mikias looks at the moon, wondering if God is truly watching, and resolves to play her role perfectly as the first gravekeeper saintess in history to potentially become queen. The scene changes to a lavish room where Connie is admiring a ring set with a brilliant green gem. She gleefully thanks her brother, Ernest, calling it Christina's emerald. She asks him how he managed to kill Lady Christina without the stone's power being erased, but Ernest cryptically tells her it is a secret. They discuss the news of Mikias being engaged to Prince Riddle. While Connie is annoyed, Ernest remains calm and predatory, staring at a newspaper clipping of the couple and declaring that he will get Mikias back soon. The next day, a beautifully dressed Mikias follows Riddle through the palace. He explains that before the ceremony begins, he wants to introduce her to his younger sister, Lunamari, who seems to be in better spirits. Mikias is incredibly nervous, worried about making a mistake or making the young girl uncomfortable. They enter a bright white bedroom where Lunamari is sitting up in bed. Lunamari shyly presents a colorful drawing she made, which depicts Riddle, herself, and a woman with long wavy hair. Mikias realizes the woman in the drawing is her. Lunamari happily welcomes her, stating that Mikias is now a member of their family. Mikias is deeply moved, realizing the weight of becoming a sister-in-law. She warmly introduces herself and promises to be a good big sister. Lunamari confesses that although she has become a saintess, she still cannot use her powers properly. She pleads with Mikias to teach her how to control them. Mikias agrees and asks Lunamari to teach her about the palace in return, since she is still an outsider. As they bond, Mikias observes the tender look on Riddle's face. She realizes that after the death of Lady Christina, Lunamari is the only precious thing Riddle has left to protect. Mikias vows to herself that she will protect this child and the prince's small family, no matter what. The sun shines brightly over the sprawling palace as the day of the selection ceremony finally dawns. Mikias stands before a grand mirror, draped in a magnificent white gown and a gold-trimmed cloak, struggling to process the reality that she has been chosen as the future queen. She recalls the whispers and the disdain she faced as a dirty gravekeeper saintess, but she slaps her cheeks to find her resolve, determined to face the day for the sake of her future. As she heads toward the ceremony, her mind is consumed by Selena, certain that the great saintess will not let the day pass without interference. While navigating the palace halls, Mikias accidentally collides with Ernest Windermere. He catches her with a practiced, charming smile, greeting her warmly. Mikias is immediately flustered, feeling a sense of déjà vu from their previous encounters. Ernest compliments her new outfit, telling her she looks much prettier than before. He then drops a bombshell expressing his pity that she will soon belong to the prince. Mikias is skeptical, questioning how he can say such things when he is the brother of her rival, Connie. Ernest doubles down on his act, putting on a heartbroken expression and insisting his feelings for her are genuine. Mikias is overwhelmed by his intensity, wondering if she is hallucinating. Seeing her disbelief, Ernest sighs dramatically, but offers to escort her safely to the Saint Palace. He warns her that the main entrance is swarming with reporters and crowds eager to see the new bride. Fearing the public's judgment and the high probability of running into Selena on the official route, Mikias agrees to his suggestion of taking the back door. However, as they step inside, the atmosphere turns chilling. Selena emerges from the shadows, her eyes wide with a terrifying manic light. She tells Mikias to die quietly and begins to manifest a dark, swirling energy from her hands. Just as the situation turns dire, Ernest shouts for Mikias to run, telling her to head for the back door while he handles Selena. Mikias flees in a panic, feeling a sudden surge of gratitude and wondering if she had misjudged Ernest's character. Exhausted and breathless, Mikias reaches a quiet room where a maid offers her a glass of water. She drinks it down quickly, her heart still racing as she worries about Ernest's safety. Little does she know the entire encounter was a calculated trap. Back in the hallway, Ernest and Selena drop their hostile act. Ernest praises Selena for her convincing performance, revealing that they staged the fight to manipulate Mikias. He explains that Connie's prophecy predicted Mikias' victory, but he believes prophecies are meant to be changed. Selena smiles wickedly, confirming that the water Mikias just drank was infused with her own manipulative power. The grand ceremony begins in the St. Palace Cathedral. Prince Riddle stands at the altar in his full royal regalia, surrounded by the kingdom's elite. Mikias arrives, her nerves on edge as she notices Ernest's absence and Selena's eerie calmness. When her name is called, she steps forward, her body stiff with anxiety. Riddle speaks with authority, declaring before God and the assembly that he takes Mikias as his one and only queen. As Mikias kneels to receive the crown, the hall is silent with anticipation. But just as Riddle lowers the crown, Selena's voice rings out, demanding the ceremony stop. She marches forward, claiming to speak for the people and urging the prince to reconsider his choice of bride. Selena continues her mean girl monologue, calling Mikias a sewer rat and making it clear she's not about to let a commoner snatch her crown. Right on cue, the special water Mikias drank earlier kicks in, and she collapses like a house of cards. Selena, never one to miss a dramatic opportunity, immediately claims the gods have swiped left on Mikias, declaring the collapse a divine rejection. She starts campaigning for herself, citing her healing powers and noble fan club, while the crowd joins in on the Gravekeeper Saintess hate train, whispering about how disgraceful and filthy she is. Poor Mikias is stuck on the floor, internally screaming at her legs to do something while Selena smirks like she's already won the pageant. Mikias feels utterly useless, unable to refute the claims as her strength fails her. Meanwhile, Ernest is lurking in the background, patting himself on the back for a plan well executed. He views Riddle as a spoiled brat, who can't bear to see people hurt, assuming the prince will fold under the social pressure. However, Riddle has other ideas. He shuts Selena down, stating firmly that he chose Mikias with his own free will and that Selena is the only one interfering with the sacred ceremony. In a move that sends the fake marriage contract flying out the window, Riddle ignores Selena's gaslighting and scoops Mikias up in a grand bridal carry. He tells her she's done more than enough and promises to get a doctor, completely disregarding Selena's screeching about being deceived. He then turns to the audience and gives a stirring speech, admitting that while Mikias lacks noble backing, her heart of kindness and years of diligent service make her the only one truly suited to be his queen. To put the cherry on top of this social disaster, Riddle leans in and gives Mikias a very public, very non-contractual kiss. Mikias' brain essentially short-circuits, while Selena looks like she's about to have a literal aneurysm. Selena, having officially lost the last of her marbles, decides that if she can't have the prince, nobody can have a functioning cathedral. She can't believe Riddle actually loves that woman, and bites her lip in a manic rage until it bleeds. She signals her hooded minions to pour oil from the balconies over the guests like they're dressing a giant salad. Looking like a horror movie villain, she drops a candelabra, instantly turning the cathedral into an inferno. As the doors are chained shut from the outside and the nobles realize they're the main course in a cathedral-sized barbecue, panic erupts. Riddle is horrified as the exit is blocked. Selena stands amidst the flames, calmly explaining that if Riddle tries to escape with his filthy woman, everyone else will burn to a crisp. She claims this is all to protect him from being tricked, proving that her healing powers definitely don't extend to her own mental health. The palace in chaos and Selena declaring she doesn't mind sacrificing everyone to get her way, even with her status as a saint. She presents Prince Riddle with a cruel ultimatum: abandon Mikias and she will use her powers to save the trapped nobles, or stay by her side and watch everyone in the cathedral burn to death. Riddle is paralyzed with agony, looking down at the helpless Mikias in his arms. He knows that if he leaves her, she will be engulfed by the fire and smoke, but the screams of his people echo through the hall. In a display of incredible selflessness, Mikias looks up at Riddle and tells him it's okay to leave her behind. Riddle is horrified terrified, but Mikias remains firm, reminding him of his future as king. She asks him what kind of ruler lets his people perish when he has the power to save them. She insists that she has always been a survivor and promises she will manage to hold on until he returns. Heartbroken, Riddle realizes she is right. He mentions a royal emergency exit hidden beneath the altar and reluctantly sets her down, swearing on his life that he will come back for her. As Riddle rushes to help the panicked crowd, Selena continues her reign of terror. When a desperate noble tries to force her to open the doors, she uses a burst of dark energy to blast him away, calling the guests filthy for touching her. Meanwhile, Ernest Windermere watches the chaos from a safe distance, smugly noting that everything is going according to his plan. He intends to wait for the perfect moment to rescue Mikias himself, playing the hero to secure her for his own family's interests. Back at the altar, Selena stands over the prone Mikias, laughing at her as she struggles to crawl through the thickening smoke. She mocks Mikias, calling her a pathetic caterpillar and disgusting, before turning her back and leaving her to be consumed by the inferno. Mikias, her vision blurring and her lungs burning, begins to lose consciousness. She reflects on her life with a sense of peace, hoping her mother will be proud of her sacrifice. Yet her final thoughts are of Riddle, worrying that he will spend the rest of his life blaming himself for her death. Just as the darkness begins to take her and the flames close in, a sudden, brilliant light erupts from Mikias' hands. The divine power within her, perhaps triggered by her pure intent and the dire circumstances, begins to surge outward in a blinding glow, signaling that the Gravekeeper Saintess might have a much greater destiny and power than anyone ever imagined. Mikias lies in the roaring flames, gasping. She realizes her breathing has become easier. She moves her hands and legs again and feels renewed strength. A brilliant light pulses from the large, multifaceted jewel in her palm. She wonders if the stone healed her. The jewel glows intensely and reacts to something nearby in the burning room. She looks toward the source and identifies Selena's healing stone. The jewel in her hand strains toward the first saint's tiara on the floor. She recognizes it as the sacred symbol presented before God at the wedding ceremony, proof that the bride belongs to the king. A voice calls for Renard through the thick smoke. Mikias looks up and sees Selena standing in the fire, still wearing her bridal veil. Selena shows clear annoyance that Mikias is still alive and able to speak. Mikias bends down and snatches the tiara from the floor. She lifts it and says she needs it. Selena reacts with shock that Mikias still has it. She warns that it is not something she should touch and demands it back. Mikias smiles. She asks if Selena knows Selena and taunts her by mentioning how cute Prince Riddle looks when he smiles. Selena's face twists with rage. She calls Mikias a worm and lunges to kill her. The moment she makes contact, a strange sensation spreads through her. She gasps as her essence begins to pull away. She senses her power draining. Selena tries to recoil, but it has already begun. A dark purple aura flows from her body into Mikias' stone. Her strength weakens. The holy glow around her fades. Mikias stands steady in the inferno. She admits she does not understand what happened. She declares she will not obey Selena anymore. She winks and waves. Selena collapses to the floor and screams for her to wait. As Selena struggles, she notices a hidden underground passage opening. She realizes there was an escape route. She overhears that everyone is evacuating through it. She understands that even a protected saint like her has been abandoned. She questions her failure. Prince Riddle emerges from the secret passage and calls Mikias' name. She greets him with a bright smile and calls his name. He rushes to her side, stunned that she survived, and asks about Selena. Mikias says many things happened and she will explain later. She assures him Selena is safe. Riddle pulls her into a tight embrace, apologizing and showing deep relief. Mikias thanks him and blushes. She assures him she is fine. Mikias points out that the passage door is open. Riddle confirms it. They focus on the crisis. Mikias offers to help with the rescue. Riddle takes command of the burning hall. He directs everyone to the exit, tells them to follow the guards, stay calm, cover their mouths with handkerchiefs, and send women and children first. As the evacuation nears completion, Mikias scans the crumbling, fire-swept cathedral. Almost everyone has escaped. She decides to head for the exit. Just as she prepares to leave, she spots someone still trapped behind a pillar. Mikias spots Lunamary trembling behind a pillar as the fire spreads. She rushes to her. Surprised the girl has not evacuated, she firmly tells her they need to leave at once. Lunamary stands speechless and tearful as Mikias grabs her. As the hall clears, Mikias sees Connie trapped behind a wall of fire. She realizes she cannot leave her. She tells Lunamary to wait and runs back toward the flames. Connie looks terrified and shocked as Mikias comes for her. Mikias hands Lunamary to a guard. She asks him to take care of her and bring her to Riddle's place first. She gives Lunamary a reassuring smile and promises to follow. Mikias pours water over herself to shield against the heat. She reaches Connie and urges her to run. She warns they will both burn if they stay. Connie hesitates, overwhelmed, but Mikias insists she will protect her. They run through the flames together. Connie soon grows exhausted. They reach Riddle near the passage. He asks about Lunamary. Mikias confirms the girl is safe. Riddle smiles warmly and thanks her. Mikias nods. They realize they are the last ones in the cathedral. They hurry into the passage. The structure groans and collapses behind them. The entrance is buried in debris, and they narrowly avoid being crushed. Riddle reaches what he believes is the exit. It is blocked by heavy stones. He hears a voice from the other side and realizes Ernest Windermere is trapped. He orders the guards to move the rubble. Ernest lies bloody and pinned under stones. He mocks Riddle and questions why he would save the man who killed his sister, Princess Christina. Riddle remains stoic. He states that even a villain's life is still a life and demands Ernest give him his hand. Riddle pulls the injured Ernest through the tunnel. He notes the outside is close and that Ernest's sister has already been evacuated. Ernest glares at Riddle with deep hatred. He thinks that Riddle may act like a saint, but he vows to drag the prince down from his throne one day. Riddle carries the injured Ernest through the tunnel. He questions why Ernest hates the royal family when he does not recall doing anything to him. Ernest thinks the prince knows nothing. The tunnel begins to crack and collapse. Mikias calls from the exit and urges them to hurry because the structure will not hold much longer. Ernest struggles to stay conscious. He sees Mikias waiting in the light. He tries to reach her before Riddle can, but his strength fails. He loses consciousness. Ernest wakes under a clear blue sky. Mikias leans over him, smiling with joy that he has opened his eyes. They are in a busy medical camp where nuns treat survivors of the fire. Ernest feels confused by her happiness and wonders why she was worried about him. Mikias states that of course she was worried. He was the last one out and looked half dead. She says she is glad he did not die. Ernest looks at her. He thinks she is too nice or too stupid. He finds he cannot mock her. He asks if she helped him out of the exit. Mikias explains that the prince carried him to safety after he fell. A maid arrives and informs Mikias that the prince is calling for her. As she prepares to leave, Ernest grabs her hand and asks her to stay. Mikias becomes flustered. She apologizes and says she must go. Ernest lets go. He laughs it off and blames the fire for making him act strange. She runs off. He watches her with a determined smile. He thinks he will one day steal her from the prince. Mikias runs, her face flushed. She wonders what was wrong with Ernest and notes that he felt different than usual. Evening falls over the kingdom. The cathedral stands surrounded by scaffolding as repairs begin. No one died in the fire. In the palace dungeons, Serena sits alone in a cell. Riddle and Mikias arrive before her. The prince coldly informs the fallen saintess that her punishment has been decided.